How's it going, everybody? My name's Chippa and welcome back to another video on Escape from Tarkov. So in today's video, I wanted to talk to you about the weight system that got introduced in 12.4. Now, I know a lot of people are probably finding this weight system to be a bit painful, not necessarily once you hit over 75 kilos, but even over 50 kilos, because once you hit over 50 kilos, that's when you cannot regenerate stamina while moving. And that's where a lot of people are sprinting, having to go prone or crouch in a bush or something like that, or hide in order to regain stamina again, just so that they've got the stamina ready for a fight. So in order to sort of alleviate that, I thought, okay, well, what are some things we can do to reduce our weight? What's some builds that I can create that are going to be still effective in combat or still have the capacity to loot as much as I can while being as lightweight as possible? So that's what I thought. I thought I would go from class 3, 4, 5, and 6 and see what weapons I could come up with and increasing the lethality as I went up in tiers as well. So now this isn't necessarily set in stone with these kits. These are just the kits that I was running that were lightweight and I was testing out, and I ended up testing a few guns which I thought would be really good, but some of them really didn't work out, but I'll go over that later in the video. So first up, we're going to be going over the basic loadout that I'll be using for the majority of my builds. So this is like health, maybe even bags, grenades and things like that I'll be using, which there's obviously some different choices that you need to make and consider, but then also going across to the different builds as well. So we're starting off with class 3. I'll maybe be showing a few quick highlights, maybe a few quick kills, just to show you that, look, it can work out, and then moving on from there. Alrighty, so the first thing I want to talk about is sort of the basic items that I always take into the raid, majority across all of my kits. So starting off, I'll be looking at more the gamma container, because this is where a lot of people will store either their keys and their medication or spare ammunition. So the first thing I want to talk about is the ability to repair a blacked out limb. Probably the best thing that came in 0.12 was the ability to repair blacked out limbs. Now you have two choices. You either have the CMS kit or you have the surgical field kit. Now, one thing I noticed is that the surgical field kit is 1.2 kilos, whereas if you have the splint pack at 200 grams, 220 grams, and then 400 grams for the CMS kit, you're almost saving about 600 grams. Now, that's what I'm really planning to do with all these builds. I'm really trying to min-max, okay, what can I use to save weight? It even came down to Vaseline. Vaseline is only 0.010 kg for 10 users, whereas Golden Star is actually 0.100 G, so, or 100 G. So it's not it's not huge savings, but it's still a saving. Same when it came to the sick case as well. A stock sick case is about 200 G when it's empty. 200 grams, as opposed to a docs case, which is 700 G. So that's another half a kilo saving just in it being empty without any keys. Moving on to even grenades too. So there's probably two choices that I'd go with. The new VOG25 grenades are really lightweight and really overpowered. The aggression with these grenades is just insane. There's not really much people can do if you land the grenade right on top of them, due to the short fuse. However, if you want something a little bit lightweight that's cheap, the RGD5 grenades are still only just a little bit more weight, so they're the cheap alternative. Obviously, what I went with too, I went for medication for pain relief was Propital, or you can even do morphine as well. They're the same weight, so it's no real problem. One thing that did surprise me though was the Sawala kits. They're actually 600 grams, yet IFAKs are actually 800 grams, even though they're one slot. So there's a 200 gram saving there as well. Now that pretty much covers the basics of the kit that I'd be using. Now for most of my kits, until I get later on, I am using a Comtax, mostly because it is relatively cheap and easy to come by, but they probably are the heaviest when it comes to contacts. If you're looking for the lightest weight option, it's the new Walker razors, but you have to get them off the flea market. But they are probably the most lightweight at 430G. Alright, so the first kit I want to talk about is the Class 3 kit. Now this kit is under 15 kilograms. Now it is designed specifically more for looting, so I like to use this kit for like shoreline coastal runs where we're very relaxed and just going for hidden stashes, maybe a few safes, and maybe some jackets towards the end depending on where I spawn. And I can normally get around 500 to maybe up to 700,000 rubles out of that run. Otherwise, I'm going to say interchange, and I'm going for all the motors, fuel, the fuel canisters, and whatever else I can get my hands on. But it's giving me the most amount of flexibility to take very large items while still being able to sprint around. Now, first of all, it covers pretty much what we talked about before, going over the different keys, the suitcase, the Vaseline, the splints, etc. Now I am using the FN57 purely for the fact of it is extremely light pistol, which is really good for not necessarily engaging in PvP but defending myself, especially against from scavs. Really good gun, especially the fact that it can be silenced just for 1.1 kilograms, because silencers are the biggest killer with weight. But the FN57 has a really good lightweight silencer. So moving on, now I will probably put a link in the description for all the guns, because I'm not going to go over the mods, but if you want to actually build the guns, that's where you're going to need to go. The next thing that I do too is obviously I've got the VOG grenades, I've got my pain relief and my healing. I normally go with about 3 mags in general across the board, unless I'm running like high capacity 60 rounders. Now, one of the best additions that came recently too was the new strategic D3 CRX chest harness. This is an exceptionally good rig for being lightweight, as it only is 900 grams, but it does give you the relatively good amount of slots, 2x1 slots and 4 1x1 slots. So really good rig for the price and being lightweight. Moving on, so the Yrsa when it comes to class 3 is probably the best in terms of lightweight at 4.1 kilos. Now you can use the press armor, which is probably going to be really good early on in a wipe, where however the price for this armor now and the availability on scavs etc isn't that high. So, but it is it's probably significantly better than the Yrsa, but it is a little bit more in the weight department. So you will be adding an extra 1 kilo on. But also too, we're just going for a very cheap option here, which is just the SSH helm, which is 1.5 kilos. Not the lightest helm that you can get, but it is still relatively good compared to running like an expensive class 4 helm, which is under 1 kilo. Like I said before, running the contacts as well, but you have got the razor as the new headset is cheaper. But even with this loadout here, also only running a gamma container, we're under 15 kilos at 14.3. A really effective looting loadout that I really enjoy using on shoreline and interchange. Alrighty, now the next kit I want to talk about is the Class 4 loadout. Now first of all, I wanted to start off with the MP7. Now the MP7 is fantastic performance for the weight. Now this gun is actually 3.2 kilos, but it actually is pretty heavy considering some of the additional loadouts that I'll be talking about later on. But the best thing about this gun is that it's extremely good fire rate, but also too has exceptional rounds that are lightweight. So the APSX rounds, while quite expensive, are only 0.007 kg per round, which means it allows you to actually run 4 mags with 40 rounds each, fully loaded, as well as another 140 rounds in your secure container, which gives you sort of enough reloadability as well as enough to get into some PvP and do some looting along the way as well. Obviously this kit's more designed for close encounters, so you're looking at sort of like reserve, going through all the reserve housing, as well as the dorms on customs, or even factory stomping potentially, as well as having the ability for a face shield. So we went this time with the LZSH with the face shield, coming in at just under 2 kilos. Then we also went the Trooper Armor. So Trooper Armor is fantastic for survivability for a Class 4 armor, especially since it's increased its durability up to 85. This armor actually is probably one of the only Class 4 armors that has a really good chance at stopping 7-in-1 rounds from one-tapping you in the chest. Mostly because it's such high effective durability overall that it'll actually reduce the round enough to survive a 7-in-1. But the best part is it comes with only 5 kilos, so really good armor. Now I know there are cheaper armor at the moment, like the Slick and the CPC rig from the gift. So this is based around at the moment where those are really cheap, but once prices normalize, the Trooper armor will be a really good option. Obviously our loadout, the vest, the Pilgrim, etc. contacts still remain the same. We have upgraded to the Kappa, which obviously adds about, I think, another 600 grams of weight. But overall, we just managed to hit 20 kilos. So if you went the secure container, took off the rotor silencer, and potentially even used maybe not a face shield helm, you could potentially save around 2-ish kilos. So you can get down to about 18 something kilos. If you really wanted to go extreme lightweight, but I thought this was the best sort of loadout for this sort of class and this far into the wipe. Alright, now moving on to the Class 5 loadout. Now this is using the new armor CPC plate carrier. Now without anything loaded, this is 8.5 kilos in total weight, now which is pretty good considering killer armor is 7.5 kilos. So even if you ran a rig, you pretty much another vest for ammo capacity as well as killer armor, you're pretty much running at the exact same weight anyway, or close to. But the best thing about this is that this CPC plate carrier is almost the exact same statistics as kill armor. The only thing you're losing out on is stomach protection, but it does allow you to use the Red Rebel and go to the observatory exit on reserve. So it does have its advantages over killer armor. more importantly too, it's significantly cheaper at about half the cost. So something to just be mindful of. So we ended up going with that. The helm this time round, now there's two options that I ran with. It was either the new Team Wendy ballistic helmet, really good, little bit more effective durability on the helm for surviving headshots, but also too, I ran the fast MT with the face shield. So that became a little bit heavier, but I also tried sort of both of them, probably for reserve, because a lot of the times long range, you do have a lot of long range shots. I ended up going with the Team Wendy overall, and it's also lighter, but you can go the fast MT if you're going into the actual complexes, going to be corridor fighting, etc., just to potentially save you from pistol and scavs as well. Now the best part is the weapon that I used. Now I played around a lot with different rifles and stuff, AKs especially, but none of them are really lightweight. None of them compared or came close to the Lone Star TX15 build. This thing was able to be fully loaded in under 3 kilos. So this is even lighter than the MP7 that I was showing casing before. Like I mentioned, I will put a description for all the guns down below, probably towards my spreadsheet, so you can actually build these guns if you'd like to. But equipping that and just using the canted sight PKO. Now I'm at 22 kilos, so right now I could actually go into a raid like Shoreline or Interchange or something and be pretty much good to go as long as I have the right keys. Now if I wanted to go to reserve, it's actually going to add a little bit more weight obviously, so I'm putting my melee weapon on. Don't normally need it, why have it if I've got a main weapon, and as well as a paracord, and I'm up to 23 kilos, so not too bad considering. I kind of like this build. This is probably the build that I enjoy the most and the weapon I enjoyed the most, but I did end up using a what's his name, a Valday scope quite a bit. So this is probably the build that I took to reserve. I wanted the ability to have long range precision shots, especially since I'm using a semi-automatic as well. But this build worked out really, really well. This gun is probably pretty expensive. One thing I will note, I did end up using the 370 mil barrel because it was probably better overall for weight as well as performance. But I will go over all the like I said, I will post the link up so you can build this gun for yourself as well. Alrighty, and the last kit I want to talk about is the Class 6 loadout. So the biggest thing I changed here was the contacts. We're now using the Razors digital headset, saving about 300 grams there. We're still going with the ballistic helmet, Team Wendy. I find that to be really good value at 1.3, but if you're going to be potentially going in those close encounters where the face shield's going to be of benefit, then go down that route. We've upgraded the armor to Class 6, which is the slick plate carrier, which is the new addition. Now this armor is extremely good and is probably one of the best meta armors that you could be running right now in Escape from Tarkov. Really good effective durability, Really lightweight armor considering that it's class 6. And its repairability is insane. You lose, because of being armored steel, you lose very little total durability when repairing. So definitely something to consider. Now, when it came to the vest, I did upgrade to the Velocity Systems Patrol Vest. It's 1.6 kilos by default, but you can use the other vest that we were talking about before, which is the Haley Strategic harness, if you want to save about 700 grams, which is definitely a valid option because it's definitely got enough space. We've upgraded to one more VOG 25 grenade just so we can be a little bit more aggressive. Now, backpacks is something I've sort of only been glazing over, but this is probably the best backpack in terms of weight. So you'll see these backpacks probably going right up in price at the moment because they're only 1.2 kilos. And it's probably the second biggest bag you can take. It is relatively big though. It will obviously make you stand out. But yeah, the Mystery Range Blackjack 50 is definitely the most lightweight. Next being the Attack 2 at only 1.3. So there's not much difference really if you just want to go the Attack 2. It's really min-maxing at this point. Obviously too, we're taking another 60 rounds of M995 or just 5.56 in general, depending on which way you go. Just because we're running two 60 round mags, we'll need that potentially that capacity if we run into big firefights just to reload. Now, I did run the a few raids with the HK, even just with 30 round mag and a candid sight, but the gun is just too heavy. I really just couldn't justify it being a lightweight gun compared to the M4A1. The M4A1 was just significantly lighter, coming in at only 3.8 kilos. So this is also with a Valday and a 60 round mag, and the 60 round mags are about 900 grams. That's, in my opinion, it was worth it at this stage of gear that I was running. Obviously, if you're going to be running high-end gear that you can potentially survive firefights, you want to obviously have the right gun to definitely get in people's face and come out a winner, no matter what range. And the M4 definitely suited that. Probably the best out of all the guns that I was going over. Now, probably a lot of people will definitely focus on is the ASVAL. How come I didn't include that? Because everyone's probably going to think, well, that's a really light gun, right? But the one thing people don't realize is the ASVAL, while the gun itself is relatively good statistics, the one problem is the actual weight of the ammo. It's the same weight as 7.62 by 54 or 308 rounds. So that's something that you definitely got to consider when running the ASVAL. You're only getting 30 round mags. Even the mags themselves are almost half a kilo unloaded for the 30 rounders. So they are quite heavy. The rounds are heavy. And adding this sort of kit on, losing the 60 round capacity, as well as long range engagement because of subsonic rounds, it's adding a few extra kilos. So I think if you're running like sort of labs, or you're definitely going for those close encounters, then it's probably worth it. But in my opinion, the M4A1 is just better overall. It's just lighter. It's more forgiving. The rounds are significantly lighter, and it just allows you to wipe squads, in my opinion, a lot easier. Alright, and the last thing I want to talk about is stims. Now these are not bad to keep in your gamma. They're relatively lightweight. Now the ones I want to talk about are the SJ1 and the SJ6. Now the SJ1 is around 20,000 rubles and increases your endurance and stamina by 25, but it's only for 3 minutes. Now this may allow you to actually run like sprint when you're over 75 kilos. It may give you that extra float with the cap that strength provides. It's not huge, but it either will allow you to regen strength or allow you to sprint. But just be mindful, the energy recovery and hydration effects after are pretty brutal, so just make sure you've got food and water. Now the SJ6, going for over 50,000 rubles now, and for valid reasons. Its stamina recovery and max stamina is pretty huge, and it's for 240 seconds as well. So this is definitely the one if you really want to sprint to the exit. It's been a very popular option. Obviously too, the effects too are really not that bad. Hand tremors and tunnel effect, and it's not for that long either. So it's really two good options that I just wanted to mention. Thanks for watching, guys. I really hope that you got something out of this video. If anything, just to consider, just to have you think about the different items and the weight, and to potentially save a few kilos, which might keep you under 50 kilos when you're taking a haul of loot out. But more importantly, if you guys have any tips for the fellow community, please leave them down in the comments down below, as well as if you gave any of these kits a try, please let me know which one you found and you enjoyed the most, and if it worked out for you. Also too, don't forget to like the video if you got something from it. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Really pushing for 10k subs as a stretch goal in 2020, and your help there would be appreciated. And anyway guys, until next time, I'll see you back out there.